Hello everyone, it's Teacher Markee once again and welcome to another video lecture. Today's topic is about media and information sources. Today, we will learn about the different types and formats of information sources, where to find information sources, and how to examine and evaluate information from various media sources. Let's get started. Information is everywhere. It is a powerful and essential element in decision making. People rely on various information sources in making choices, crafting solutions to problems, and more. To obtain accurate, adequate, relevant, and timely information, students should know the various sources of information from the major mass media types. As you conduct research when you're writing a paper, you will come across various sources of information. The various sources are typically classified as primary, secondary, and tertiary sources. Primary information sources provide direct or first-hand information about an event, person, object, or work of art. They are original materials which have not been interpreted, condensed, or evaluated by a secondary party. Also, they provide researchers and students a closer look at the original ideas and experiences of events based on the first-hand experiences of the person or persons who created them. Here are some examples of primary information sources. Personal letter. A personal letter is a type of correspondence that usually concerns personal matters and is sent from one individual to another. Next is autobiography. An autobiography is a nonfiction story of a person's life, written by the subject themselves from their own point of view. We also have diary entries. So these are a person's records of events, transactions, or observations kept daily or at frequent intervals. Manuscript. A manuscript is a handwritten or typed document, especially a writer's first version of a book before it is published. Speeches. A speech refers to an informal or formal talk given to an audience. Giving a speech allows you to address a group of people, to express your thoughts, and oftentimes your opinion. Paintings. In the arts, painting is the expression of ideas and emotions, with the creation of certain aesthetic qualities in a two-dimensional visual language. The elements this language, its shapes, lines, colors, tones, and textures are used in various ways to produce sensations of volume, space, movement, and light on a flat surface. Another example of a primary information source is interview. An interview is a meeting or conversation in which a writer or reporter asks questions of one or more persons from whom material is sought for a newspaper story, television broadcast, etc. Patent. A patent is a legal right to an invention given to a person or entity without interference from others who wish to replicate, use, or sell it. We also have court records. Court records means any record maintained by the clerk in a civil, traffic, or criminal proceeding in the court, and any appeal from a district court. Another type of information sources is secondary information sources. Secondary sources analyze, interpret, or discuss information about a primary information source. They are subsequent to what they describe, as they are produced at some point after a primary information source appears. Papers written by students typically contain mostly secondary sources. Here are some examples of secondary information sources. Encyclopedia. An encyclopedia is a reference tool with information on a wide range of topics. You find encyclopedias at most public schools and local libraries. Most sets are comprised of multiple volumes and list topics alphabetically. Next is newspaper article. Newspaper articles are articles reporting news stories in a newspaper. We also have commentaries. These are a series of comments, explanations, or annotations about a certain work. We also have biographies. Next is biography. A biography is a detailed third-person account of another person's life story. It contains basic information about the subject's life, like their place of birth, education, and interests. We also have research articles. A research article reports the results of original research, assesses its contribution to the body of knowledge in a given area, and is published in a peer-reviewed scholarly journal. We also have book reviews. A book review is a form of literary criticism in which a book is described or analyzed based on content, style, and merit. The last type of information sources is tertiary information sources. They list, compile, or index primary and secondary information sources. These sources are most often used to look up facts or get a general idea about something. Also, these are not always considered to be acceptable materials for academic research, as they only provide overviews of the original references. Here are some examples of tertiary information sources. Almanacs. An almanac is a book published every year that contains facts and information about a particular subject or activity. Directories. A directory is a book which gives list of facts, for example, people's names, addresses, and phone numbers, or the names and addresses of business companies, usually arranged in alphabetical order. We also have manuals. A manual is a book that gives you practical instructions on how to do something or how to use something. We also have handbooks. A handbook is a book capable of being conveniently carried as a ready reference. Guidebooks. A guidebook or travel guide is a book of information about a place designed for the use of visitors or tourists. It will usually include information about sites, accommodation, restaurants, transportation, and activities. Maps of varying detail and historical and cultural information are often included in guidebooks. And we also have index. An index is a more or less detailed alphabetical listing of names, places, and topics along with the number of the page on which they are mentioned or discussed, usually included in or can be found at the back of a book. The specific types of primary, secondary, and tertiary information sources you might use when writing a paper depends upon the subject of your paper. For example, if you were writing about the Civil War, you might use a Civil War soldier's diary as a primary source, a book about the Civil War as a secondary source, and a list of Civil War battle sites as a tertiary source. Information can come from virtually anywhere: media, blogs, personal experiences, books, journal and magazine articles, experts' opinions, encyclopedias, web pages, and many other sources. And the type of information you need will change depending on the question you're trying to answer. Different assignments require information from a variety of sources. Therefore, you need to understand where to go to find certain types of information. Here are the three main information sources. We have the library, the internet, and the indigenous media sources. According to the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions in 2003, a library is a means of access to information, ideas, and works of imagination. Since the beginning of civilizations, human beings have been putting emphasis on storing of information in different ways. However, it must be admitted that libraries in ancient times were not like those of the present days. Libraries are dynamic and grow along with human civilization. A library has four main classifications. The first one is academic library. An academic library is a library which is attached to academic institutions like schools, colleges, and universities. An academic library serves more specifically the students, research scholars, teachers, and staff of the academic institution. The main objective of an academic library is to give maximum learning materials to its clientele so that they may be fully educated in their respective level. Academic libraries are categorized into school libraries, college libraries, and university libraries. We also have special library. Special library became popular since the beginning of 20th century. A special library is one which serves a particular group of people, such as the employees of a firm of government department, or the staff and members of a professional or research organization. Such a library deals essentially in information. Another type of library is public library. A public library, also called circulating library, is a library which is accessible by the public and is generally funded from a public source, such as tax money, and may be operated by the civil servants. Taxing bodies for public libraries may be at any level from local to national central government level. The last library type is national library. A national library is a library specifically established by the government of a country to serve as the preeminent repository of information for that country. Unlike public libraries, these rarely allow citizens to borrow books. Often, they include numerous, rare, valuable, or significant works. A national library is that library which has the duty of collecting and preserving the literature of the nation within and outside the country. Another type of information sources is the Internet. According to Shelley and Campbell in 2012, Internet is a global network of computers that allows computer users around the world to share information for various purposes. The Internet makes research on almost any topic more convenient and accessible than in the past, but it also presents some challenges. With all the information that's online, how do you know if you're using a reliable source? The following tips will help you tell a good source from one that is biased, outdated, or inaccurate. First is check the domain name. Look at the three letters at the end of the site's domain name, such as edu or edu, that means it's an educational site, gov or gov, that means it's a government site, or org or org, which means it's nonprofit, and com or com, which means it's a commercial site. Generally, .edu and .gov websites are credible, but beware of sites that use these suffixes in an attempt to mislead. Nonprofit websites may also contain reliable information, but take some time to consider the organization's purpose and agenda to determine if it could be biased. Commercial websites, such as those of reputable news organizations, can also be good sources, but do some investigation to look for signs of reliability. Next is to take a closer look at the source. Does the article or study have any authors listed? If so, do they cite or link to authoritative sources? Or are they writing their own opinions without backing these up with facts? Are their credentials listed? Additionally, check the date of publication. In some cases, it may not matter if the source is older or hasn't been recently updated, but in fields of study where information can rapidly change, the data may be obsolete. Next is to search for backup information. As you find information, try to verify its authenticity and legitimacy using other reliable sites. If you find another credible site that contradicts your original source, further research may be required. And lastly, use certain sources as starting point. Wikipedia offers a large volume of information, but because its entries are created in a collaborative effort involving many different users, its credibility can vary widely. In some cases, users deliberately place incorrect information on the site. In others, well-meaning users unintentionally introduce inaccuracies. For these reasons, you can use Wikipedia as a jumping-off point to spark more research, but not as a source on its own. And much like Wikipedia, sources such as individuals' blogs, online forums, and chat rooms can be used to fuel further research, but shouldn't be relied upon as sources of dependable information. The last type of information sources is indigenous media. According to Wilson et al. In 2015, this refers to a form of media conceptualized, produced, and circulated by indigenous people as vehicles for communication, specifically for cultural preservation, cultural and artistic expression, political self-determination, and cultural sovereignty. In the Philippines, Filipinos have indigenous sources, apart from the library, the internet, and other tools from which people usually obtain information. Some examples of indigenous media sources in the country are folk songs, folk tales, and folk dances. In evaluating any media sources, whether text, image, audio, or multimedia, one must remember to ask the following questions. First is, what or who is the source of information? It is necessary that before you believe a piece of information, you must know what or who is its information source. Typically, an information source can be found through a citation or a bibliography. And according to Pierce, as seen in Bautista and Ignacio in 2008, to identify an information source's perspective, one must be acquainted with triangulation, or the method used to question the validity, reliability, and accuracy of an information source. Validity is the extent to which measure, indicator, or method of data collection possesses the quality of being sound or trustworthy as far as can be judged. Reliability is the extent to which a source exudes dependable, trustworthy, genuine, and reputable information gathering processes. As Pierce in 2008 describes it, consistency is the primary measure of reliability. Accuracy is the closeness of the measurements to a specific value and the correctness of the output information. Please note that if the source of an information is not stated, it is your duty as the receiver to determine its source. Another question you need to answer is, what is the medium used? The medium used in presenting the information is also crucial in evaluating its credibility. Triangulation must also be applied in this process. For example, if the medium used is a journal or a research paper, then there is a bigger chance that the information underwent a meticulous evaluation process before being presented to the public. Blogs, on the other hand, are more susceptible to bias because information contained within blogs is based on the blogger's actual experiences and may provide varying interpretations. Another important question is, what is its purpose? Information sources have reasons why they present information, such as to inform, to persuade, to entertain, or to advertise. Generally, educational media such as researches, journals, programs, and the like are created to inform. Some blogs and news entities aim to educate people too. And if the information source is a commercial entity, there's a big possibility that the reason behind the presentation of information is an advertisement. Next is, how is the information made? The answer to this question will vary upon the type of information being evaluated. Text, visual, audio, motion, and multimedia all have different styles and guidelines in production. Therefore, you need to learn not just how to evaluate information, but also to produce them. And lastly, is it valuable to the audience? Media and information literacy enables people to interpret and make informed judgments as users of information and media and become skillful creators and producers of information and media messages. Thus, we must consider the readers or audiences as producers and consumers of media and information. Therefore, the information should aid the users in making and improving decisions.